I will be conducting this meeting tonight in the mayor's absence. The mayor's traveling, doing city business, so he will not be able to attend tonight. So I call to order this joint regular meeting of the mayor and the city council, and the mayor and the city council acting as the successor agency to the redevelopment agency of the city of San Bernardino. Welcome everybody tonight. It's so wonderful to see everybody here. You know, we're in our new location, and we hope to make sure everything is professionally run, and let's move on with our meeting. As we commence, please silence your phones, your electronic devices, and refrain from creating any disturbance in the audience. I would like Pastor Robert Quincas, Pastor Robert from the Way Church to lead us in the invocation, and Victor Hernandez to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Victor is in the 7th grade at Norton Science and Language Academy. Welcome and thank you both. Shall we all stand?
If we can bow our heads and close our eyes. Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening, and we thank you for this opportunity to meet and to discuss plans. God, we pray for wisdom, understanding, guidance. Lord, we appreciate what you're doing. We thank you for the prosperity over this city, and we thank you for unity tonight and your heavenly will to be done on earth as it is in heaven. God, we thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Good evening. My name is Victor Hernandez. Please put your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all. Thank you.
So we will now have our presentations. We have a full presentation from San Bernardino Valley Municipal Water District and Gil Navarro. There you are.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, staff, community members. My name is Gil Navarro. I'm a director on the San Bernardino Valley Municipal Water District, Division 2, which is the unincorporated area of Bloomington, the city of Colton, and the most important part, the west side of San Bernardino. It's a pleasure to be able to present what Valley District's about. And I'm going to be presenting Christine Fowler, who's our manager of water use efficiency and external affairs. But before I have her come up, I want to just present some good news that occurred on the board last month with the voting approval of 5 directors unanimously, that we voted to reduce our tax rate on your property taxes from Yucaipa all the way to Fontana, a reduction of $6 million a year. And that'll go on until we decide to lower it more. So it's our way of giving back some of the support that our ratepayers and your constituents have contributed to ensure we have water here in the future. With no further ado, I want to introduce Christine Fowler, our water manager of the Water Use Efficiency and External Affairs. Thank you.
Thank Thank you, Director Navarro. I would be remiss to not introduce Director Susan Longville is with us as well, and I think she will say a few words when I conclude the presentation. But thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council members. It's such an honor to be here before you this evening. As Director Navarro said, I'm with San Bernardino Valley Municipal Water District, and so I'm going to try to run through a presentation that just gives you an overview of who we are in relation to the City of San Bernardino and why I'm here, just letting you know about who Valley District is. So we are not your water retailer. You are not, we're not the ones who take your money every month when you write a check to pay your water bill. We are the ones who sell them water. So what that means is we're more of a reliability planner. So our focus is to make sure that the region has a reliable water supply both today, tomorrow, and for 50 years to come. We have been operating for 65 years, and we are a state water contractor. There's not a lot of agencies that are state water contractors. There's 27 total throughout the state, and we are the 5th largest. We manage groundwater storage, we plan for the future, and we partner with our surrounding agencies. And as Gil alluded to, we do receive an ad valorem tax, which was something that was approved when we were established and when we joined on to the State Water Project. And I will get into that a little further into the presentation. This is our service area. It includes all of the city of San Bernardino as well as 13 other cities and water retailers in a 325 square mile service area. It's a very diverse area. Over 700,000 people ultimately are the recipients of the water that we either pump out of the ground or import from Northern California. And this is our boundaries with our board member oversight. As Director Navarro said, he does have the west end portion of San Bernardino. Director Longville has a huge portion of San Bernardino as well on sort of the north end. And then we have 3 additional board members, and we basically go everywhere from Rialto, Colton, all the way across to Yucaipa. It's a very large service area and also quite a diverse service area. If you think about the communities that are served, small homes, large homes, vacation properties, rentals, everything you can imagine within this service area. Our board members are elected for 4-year terms, and it's overlapping election cycles. Jumping into the water resources, Valley District is dependent on imported water for only 25% of our water supply. So as a water agency, that's very exciting because that means we're basically locally reliant for 75% of our water supply. And that comes as local rain, which we got a ton of this year. We're able to capture and keep it in the groundwater basins and then pump it out for future use. However, even though we get about 75% of our water locally, it's potentially not enough. So even with the rain we received, our groundwater basins are still at an all-time low. And so this is something that we need to be constantly cognizant of when we are using water. We can predict with a reasonable amount of certainty the things that we can anticipate. Those include infrastructure. We typically know the cost of infrastructure improvements that we're planning for and thinking ahead. We can anticipate how much water we'll need to import from Northern California. We can relatively anticipate the rain we're going to get, and we know that there are water conservation requirements that will limit how much water can be used throughout the region. At the same time, though, all those reliability factors become unreliable when you're dealing with water in California. For example, with infrastructure, what if we had another catastrophic failure like the Oroville spillway collapse? As a state water contractor, that impacted us significantly, and that is something that our agency has to contribute to pay for. Over the last dozen years or so, we've had multiple limitations placed on imported water due to environmental restrictions or just lack of snowpack. So even though we do get imported water, it does get restrictions placed on it quite often. And then what if we receive less rain than anticipated? This year we got a lot of rain. Again, that's pretty unusual for us. And then lastly, what if our end users don't conserve as much as they should be? There are some cities where they needed to save 35, 40% during the drought, and those customers just didn't save, and so the cities were fined. Well, ultimately, there's just not going to be enough water if that reduction doesn't occur. In 2018, there were 2 very specific water conservation laws that were put into place, and these apply to the retail water agencies, so they're the ones who are going to be reaching out to your residents, their customers, and working with those customers to cut back on water use. And the focus is really on 4 things: using water more wisely, eliminating water waste, strengthening local drought resistance or resilience, which just means planning for the area, and then in the ag areas, improving water use efficiency for those areas as well. In terms of Valley District and investing in reliability, kind of mentioned the Oroville Dam and the challenges they had with the spillway failures. Additionally, there's improvements that need to happen on the State Water Project. So this is something that Valley District continues to invest in as a state water contractor. Secondly, there's this really exciting project up in Northern California, east of Sacramento, called the Sites Project, and it's a proposed off-river reservoir storage. This has the potential to really change water in California because it would help us to store water in wet years in a reservoir in a spot that gets a ton of rain, and then potentially send it to the spots that need it, whether it's Northern, Central, or Southern California in the warmest months. And then Delta Conveyance, which used to be the Bay Delta Conservation Plan, which used to be the Twin Tunnels. Because our water comes through the precarious Bay Delta system, the Valley District is committed to investments here to increase our water supply reliability. If there was a failure in the Bay Delta, the potential for saltwater intrusion completely takes out the imported water supply. So it's a very real threat that is being addressed now by agencies like Valley District. In terms of our role, even though we don't sell water to the end user, our role is to help the retail water agencies achieve their water conservation goals. And we also supplement the rebates they provide to customers. We work very closely with Miguel and his team. In fact, I was out with his staff member today to talk to a school district about programs that we could partner with them on to help save water. And in addition to that, we also offer a number of workshops and student education programs to help train those residents, the homeowners, the potential homeowners, and to also work with our young people who really are the future of our region to help them learn why water is so important. In terms of looking ahead, we really look forward to working together. As I mentioned, we work with the Water Department on the water use efficiency opportunities. We also have the Basin Technical Advisory Committee and the Water Use Efficiency Subcommittee, where we really get into the crux of some of the projects that are collaborated on regionally. And then additionally, we have the Advisory Commission on Water Policy, where the elected officials and representatives give us input on some of the things that we're considering doing. So in conclusion, I just want to thank you for your time this evening, and thank you again to Miguel for helping us coordinate our presentation, and we look forward to working with you. And if Director Longville would like to say anything, that would be awesome.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the City Council. I want to thank you for inviting us, and I want to ask you to invite us back again next year. We have an External Affairs member. We recognize that it is important that we keep you informed, that we don't just come to you when there's problems and when there's a crisis, but that we talk to you on a continual basis. So thank you very much. My phone, my email, I'm always available for questions, and again, thank you very much for giving us a few moments of your time. Good night.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Longville. I apologize for not introducing you in the beginning. Let's move on. Are there any representatives from the Chamber of Commerce? Representative from Chamber? Would you like to come up and The San Bernardino Chamber. Okay, we'll move right on along. Finally, is there any representative from our local elected officials' offices? I invite them to come up and speak. We see none? Okay. So we're going to move right on into our public comments. Remember, everybody has 3 minutes, and so let's please keep up to the 3-minute rule. The first we have is Lagos Castaneda, followed by Cheryl and Hardy Brown, followed by Damian Alexander. Lagos?
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. I want to thank you guys for being here and listening to what I have to say. I'm here to oppose the annex of the Springs Trail project that has been approved or still going through the process. I have lived in northern San Bernardino up there in the Vermont area since '96, some 23 years. I have increasingly seen the area grow and become more and more congested each way and every which way you can imagine. On the freeway on the south side, they have built over, that I can think of, over 6, 7 giant warehouses that has really increased the amount of traffic going through the area. And now with the idea of building some 220 some odd homes up above me, really scares me. I feel that that area is the jewel of San Bernardino, and that's the reason why I've lived there. That's the reason why I bought a second home there. I have my mom living there. And with the high winds that are there, the fire danger that is there, the not having enough resources because of the money situation for San Bernardino really scares me. One of the biggest reasons why I'm here is because I have 2 small children, one that's 4 and one that's 8. Through my neighborhood app, I see weekly, sometimes more than weekly, people breaking into homes, people breaking into cars. And what's going to happen when you're building these homes that are going to be upper middle class? There's going to be nicer things in there. There's going to be more crime coming through that area. It really scares me to think that we're going to jam-pack more and not be able to service it. I was in a situation where I had to call emergency services. I didn't get anybody for 3 hours. I don't see how we could call it emergency service. We can't get somebody there in 3 hours. I think it's wrong. It's going to affect my quality of life. It's going to affect the quality of life of my children. And I hate to be able to just, or have to sell what I have there and go somewhere else. And I would hope you reconsider our situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Castaneda. Cheryl Brown and Hardy Brown?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council and those who've gathered here. These remarks Mr. Brown has prepared for tonight's meeting, and he's asked me to read them to you. I have pointed out to you since May 15th of the discrimination in the City Police Department for the last 114 years. I have wondered how it could have happened. And now I see, after reviewing some of the decisions by former chiefs, elected officials, and now city managers, as Terry told the Voice News, executive hires are generally completed by using an outside executive recruiter, unless the city manager identifies and promotes a qualified employee within the organization. This is what she did with Rebecca to the assistant city manager, and not consider anyone else. I'm afraid this is what she will do with the chief's position in a few months of him working as acting chief. She has no plan to ever consider a black or Latino into the department head level. Now in Riverside, the chief is retiring, and the city manager, Al Zelinka, has appointed an interim chief from within, but has made it clear that everyone has he has a plan to select a recruiting firm that has experience with recruiting police chiefs. He's not going to rely on his friends in the business to recruit for him like we do in San Bernardino. The internal candidates will have to compete like everyone else. His plan includes consulting with community leaders and the council on what kind of chief they want. I'm suggesting that this council direct the city manager to take the same approach and present you a plan of action so the public knows what to expect. As former Chief Mark Kling said about the Rialto Police Department, we're not going back where we were. We're not. What we're going to do is move forward. He was talking about the widespread nepotism, which is preferential treatment of family, regardless of whether they qualify or not. And cronyism, which is the same thing but applies to friends instead of family. The same can be said about the Public Works Director's position, which is currently open. I'm happy to read that a dozen developers have submitted plans to overhaul the Carousel Mall and that the Hilton Hotel is planning to expand their business on Hospitality Lane. All of this is good for the city. Let us not blow it by making bad community relations decisions in picking our personnel. Thank you.
Thank you. Damian Alexander.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. My name is Damon Alexander. I'm a commissioner on the Public Safety Commission for the City of San Bernardino. And even though I'm not speaking for the commission, I just want to let you know, what I'm concerned about is the top heaviness of our police department and the physical ramification it has on our budget. Right now, the way it looks is that we have too many generals and not enough worker bees, and how that affects our department. Right now, we're at a golden opportunity where we can restructure our police department and move some police officer positions and designate them as non-sworn positions, and less lowering particular salaries within the police department, i.e. maybe the records department, where it is now overseen by an officer, where that can easily be done in the other various departments, done by non-sworn personnel. We cannot continue to go along in this particular manner of continuing to promote, and not have enough personnel or boots on the ground serving our community. So a restructuring, I do believe, is in order, and now that we have a window of opportunity to do that, we should seize that opportunity to restructure. If an officer retires or transfers to another area that is in the command staff, we should maybe merge those particular departments and move forward with that, and then lose that particular salary, which will also help us in our general overall budget, because those are always six-figure salaries. And one other thing, diversity in our department. I'm always asking and seeing how diversity is going in our department, in the command staff and sergeant and above. I would like to see how we are recruiting, how we're going forward, how we're trying to get more diversity in our department, because to me it doesn't seem like it reflects San Bernardino or America. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call Dion Taylor up, and you have any announcements? None tonight? Okay, thank you. All right. So we have Steve O'Neill, followed by Mark Cloud, followed by Dolores Armstead.
Sorry. Good evening. My name is Stephen O'Neill, and I'm here in opposition to the annexation of the Springs Trails development, and for a number of reasons, all of which are familiar to the council by now, I'm sure. Fire danger, earthquake fault lines, housing density, to name just a few, should be sufficient reasons for denial of the project annexation. Additionally, the city is bankrupt. It's laughable to think that you can provide adequate resources and infrastructure to support a development that will put an estimated 3,600 cars on the 2 roads proposed. This city can't even solve the twice-daily congestion problems at the corner of Myers and Little League, caused by school traffic, and which many residents have complained about over the years, and which creates unsafe working conditions, not only for the school personnel, but for the students who are there and for the residents of the Verdemont area. In the 15 years we have lived, my wife and I have lived, off of Myers Road, we have rarely seen a policeman, and never, I repeat, never, have we seen a city worker fixing our roads. After flooding by rains, it's up to the local residents to repair them, which we do ourselves. I've absolutely no doubt that if approved, this annexation will produce a far greater problem for the present residents with no help from the city. Finally, if and when a catastrophic fire or earthquake devastates this ill-conceived development, it is you, the present City Council, who will bear the responsibility and blame. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Cloud.
Honorable Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, good evening. Mark Cloud, I'm your Public Affairs Manager from Southern California Edison with 2 really quick updates. One, your 2018 reliability report for the city is available. Not only is it online, but I've made it available to city staff and your clerks, so if you want to dig into that information, we have it for you. And perhaps even more importantly tonight, I wanted to bring you an update quickly on what we're doing in Southern California as a company to mitigate wildfire risk. I've also included that information I should say, given it to the city clerk and staff, and have had a couple of meetings to talk about what we're doing. Really quickly, we're doing things like vegetation management. We're doing a really good job of clearing as much vegetation as we can around our infrastructure to ensure that we are reducing the fuel problem in California. We're also, in essence, fireproofing our grid, starting in the high fire risk areas where you find foothills and mountains and trees and things. We're replacing wooden poles with synthetic material poles, and we're covering a lot of our conductor, which is the lines you see, in a synthetic material for the same reason. So we're essentially fireproofing the grid. We call it grid hardening. We are doing something relatively new, and this is something that all the publicly owned utilities across the, investor-owned utilities across the state are now doing, and it's called public safety power shutoffs. And it's where we, based on a number of data points and expert opinion that we have access to, we are preemptively, in some cases, de-energizing circuits to ensure that the businesses and the homes on those circuits are at the lowest risk possible when it comes to an emerging fire threat. So, in essence, what we want to do is avoid contributing to or sparking a new fire with our infrastructure in a particular neighborhood. And we're only doing that in cases where the fire threat is extreme and very imminent, and we're basing that on lots of weather data and our own in-house experts. By the way, we now have an in-house meteorologist. So we're doing lots of things to reduce the risk for wildfire in Southern California. Our utilities play a big role in this. And so if you'd like more information on this, of course, there's more information in the packets I provided to your city clerk, but I'd be happy to come back and give you a more thorough presentation, or would be happy to bring you more information, perhaps the city staff. It's my pleasure to do so. That's all I've got tonight. Happy to answer any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Dolores Armstead. Dolores, I have 2 speaker slips here for you. You filled out 2? Okay. All right, we got you.
Good evening, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. I'm primarily addressing item number 4, which is formerly the Boys and Girls Club, but now I think it's the Community Center on 9th Street. Thank you. I saw that you're thinking about approving an RFP for running that facility. Thank you. We needed change in that facility. The former operator, I guess, lost credibility, lost legacy of our community, and we need to see it run better, efficiently, effectively. So we really thank you for looking at a new way to operate that youth/community center. The community, us that live there, we're watching to see how you're going to contract with the next credible organization that is in tune with the community, not someone from the outside that, looks like a great way to make an income, but an organization that understands the communities that they're serving. The West Side is just, we're our own, we're different, and whoever comes to operate it needs to understand what this community is about. It has been a long neglected community, so we're really looking forward to a facility that will again become a beacon of our community. We need something like that. My request is that in the future, if the city could be more transparent when somebody calls and asks, what's the status, what are you doing? This is the first that we heard of what's getting ready to happen, even though I've called repeatedly. I'm glad to see that it's going for an RFP, but when I call, it would have been nice to get a status that you're going for an RFP. Just a little bit more transparency. And then also, I'd like to make a comment with Mr. Alexander. Yes, we do need more diversity in our PD. We've been here a long time. We citizens, we'd like to see a reflection of more of the people that are in this city. So please consider bringing some more diversity and more ground troops to our PD. It's my tax dollars, it's your tax dollars. I'd like to see it spent a little bit more wisely than it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Dolores. Project Fighting Chance, followed by Ricardo Casillas, followed by Richard Kaplan.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council members. I do have some handouts for you, if someone can provide those. Gigi, thanks. Project Fighting Chance, in regards to the address 1180 West 9th Street, is a recognized national boxing program that has 5 national champions training at 1263 Union Street in San Bernardino. We are familiar with the West Side. We serve the West Side with great diversity. We are a trauma-informed center. We actually have worked very closely with the after-school program, CAPS program with San Bernardino City Unified, and have worked also with the District Attorney's Office to work with youth that have been impacted by childhood domestic violence. Having an impact of trauma, secondary or vicarious trauma, is something we're very aware of that happens on the West Side. These young people have been impacted to the point where it affects their education, their family life, their ability to thrive as citizens. And so what we've done is open up our boxing gym for those young people to come in that have issues of aggression, tendencies of violence, and get trained by one of the best amateur boxing coaches in the United States of America. And as a result of that, just recently, the city and the San Bernardino Police Department provided funding that assists us with this issue of trauma. And so we are interested in growing. We have currently outgrown our capacity at the Home of Neighborly Services. We have a demand for about 120 youth per day that we're looking for a bigger facility. We are preparing to defend our national title in Columbus, Ohio in October. 5 individuals will compete from San Bernardino as the best in the United States of America. And for us to represent the West Side, San Bernardino, as SB Strong when we travel around this country, we used to want to win. We now are expected to win and represent this city of San Bernardino with Project Fighting Chance. So we'd like for you to consider us as a tenant at the 1180 West 9th Street. We have a dynamic program. We are not just a boxing program. We are trauma-informed, after-school, guns, guitars, not guns program, art programs, chess clubs, homework, tutoring, there's a number of programs that we have that we are very much engaged with, the understanding what happens on the west side and with youth. And so, once again, we'd like for you to consider Project Fighting Chance as an occupant of 1180 West 9th Street. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Richard Casillas? I'm sorry, it's
Hello?
Ricardo.
Yeah.
Ricardo Casillas.
Well, I'm here back again with similar situation regarding the police. I talked to you guys back in May 15, sometime about 4 months ago, and I ended up talking to Eric McBride, the chief of police, that he was going to look into my situation. We met outside and we had a discussion. He never returned my call. He never bothered to tell me what's updates. So this is one of the reasons I'm here. Besides, there's another incident that I reported on September 2019, well, yesterday, and I requested police services, Harley Brown College Prep, because there was an issue with the security guard, the way it was acting. He pushed me, and I called the police to file some kind of charges against the officer. I do have evidence as I show them to the police, and I requested them to do a citizen's arrest. And from my understanding, one of the officers that was there, he even said that I was willing to sign a paper for the how do you say, citizen's arrest, and if I was willing to go to court, say, you know what, let's get it done with it, because I'm tired of this, how the police has handled things, you know. And there was 4 officers. They were actually 5 officers, because I actually requested supervisors to show up out there, because after a couple minutes, they start changing their way they were handling the situation. So at that point, I don't know if they can distinguish a private property regarding public access or something. So from my understanding, the school, this is a charter school. Okay, I already spoke with some people from that school, and they told me that's considered a public area. Anything is something with public funds is considered public area or public, whatever. So, from my understanding, the police officer refused to do that because that was, from their behalf or for the way they see it, it was a private property. So I need to address this concern, because either they don't know how to follow the laws, or they actually don't know what's the local laws that you guys implement your policies that they're supposed to implement. But it seems that I've seen there's more officers in the areas now, but there's no point of having now more officers that they can't even understand their own laws or the policy. They could we just have police just do whatever they want. So whoever's training these officers, if there's anybody with the training, somebody needs to address the concern, because at this point there's no use of having a lot of officers just wasting taxpayers' money, and they're not doing anything for, like me, the way I was calling, the reason I called them for, and this is because there was a discrimination going on with my application with my daughter. My daughter has not been attending school since school started, because they keep telling me to go back and forth to that school. They only accept, from my understanding, they only accept African Americans at that.
Mr. Kaplan, your time is up. Your time is expired. Thank you. I'm sorry.
So what should I do now?
You want to talk to the police chief? Will meet you and talk to you in the back.
Well, I hope he does do something different this time, because I'm trying to stay as neutral as I can. Last time I came with a big backpack with a bunch of documents to show it to him.
Well, thank you. If you could follow him outside and talk with him, thank you. Richard Kaplan, followed by Levi Deathtrap. And you told me how to say that, and I said it wrong anyway. And followed by Treasurer Ortiz.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor Pro Tem. I've been doing this for many years, opposing the Spring Trails development. It's just not good for that area. There are some city pockets in there that will have to be addressed. They will have to also be annexed too. Big concern is the cost of maintenance that the Public Works, County Public Works, they do on Myers Road. There are erosions, there is mud flow. So keep in mind why relieve the San Bernardino County of doing this. Save some money. I know the city needs it. Reconsider the annexation. It's just not a good time for it. Maybe later on, but not now. Let the city maintain the county road, Myers Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Levi Deathridge.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you, council members. I'm here to address an area of concern that has been brought to my attention with the Bobby Vega Park, which is located on the west side of San Bernardino. Now, the widow of Bobby Vega, Sandy, came to me very disgruntled because she is currently in possession of $150,000, which she has received through a grant. She already has a city-approved contractor who has given a bid to do this work, and she has that done as well. And for the past 5 months, she has been receiving a runaround from the city on doing this work in the park. My concern is that at this point, she is being told by the person who has given, the people who have given her this money will have to be sent back, because with any grant or any funding, they'd like to see progress on these results, and if you don't show progress, the funding is then disavowed. So that is one area of concern that I'd like to talk about. Another one is that my community center that we run as Family Assistance Program, which is located in the top floor of the Home of Neighborly Services, is directly next to that park. And we have personally, on our own work in that community center, gotten 20 people since our grand opening on June 29th from actively homeless on the streets into housing and into programs which can aid them. So I often hear at meetings like this and meetings similar to it, this concern with the growing homeless population, and I can tell you all personally that more police intervention and more police work with this population will not really create much of result of anything. As you have seen with your current rating policies that are under effect now, all you do is remove them and then take away their documents and then tell them to get out for a night, and then very oftentimes they are returning right back to the places where you're removing them from. Now, in order to better aid this population, what you should be doing, in my opinion, is reaching out to local community resources such as the Family Assistance Program, who are trained and capable of getting these persons from off the streets into programs. Now, I'm not one to say that all of these people qualify or that all of these people will even accept these services. But what I do know is telling them that they cannot stay in a park and throwing away their things is not a good protocol, because it's really ineffective. And I would heavily recommend that in future use of this policy, that instead of doing sweeps, you instead try to pass out information, as I know that there are some policies. I know the Sheriff's Hope team allegedly does these things, but I think there is much better ways we could be doing this work. And I know that our community center is personally getting these people off of the streets. And I would also like to quickly just let everyone know that our community center will be hosting a street fair this upcoming Saturday at the Home of Neighborly Services. We operate the top floor from 3 to 8 p.m., and we will have a jumper and Kona ice truck and a lot of other things, so we hope you come out and support. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Treasurer Ortiz, followed by Jose Gonzalez, followed by Luis Ojeda.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Mayor Pro Tem, I want to speak to you personally because I was very disheartened by the letter that you sent to the San Bernardino Sun on Sunday. One, by the use of the race card to call out yourselves as a new minority majority. You took over for Ricky Van Johnson, who was an African American. Teddy took over for Junior Marquez, who's Hispanic. Sandra took over for Benito, who's Hispanic. Juan took over for John, who's Hispanic. This isn't a new majority of minorities in this city. There is a representation of the demographics in the city all across the board. And so I don't understand that. I don't know why you would do that. I get election times coming up, but the people of the city are already so disenfranchised by the things that are going on a normal basis. Why? What was the purpose? And additionally, why the erroneous lies? We don't have substations. Our response times are actually going up because when Mr. McBride put up the numbers, he left out July and August, and it shows that response time since the reorganization of the districts is up. You know, we're not fully staffed. We had 350 officers prior to the bankruptcy. We have 256 now. 17 patrol positions were eliminated out of the 1920 budget. 10 because they were unfunded and they got rid of them, and 17 by attrition through reclassification. So why aren't you telling the truth? It's in the budget. We see it. We're here at the meetings. People talk about the lack of diversity in hiring. Well, you know what? Rebecca, Helen, I can all attest to the fact, because I hired for the police department of the city for 4 years, that our demographics fail in minorities because they fail in the law and legal system prior to ever becoming 20 and a half. You want to get young black men and women, young Hispanics and men and women to come to the city to be police officers, put a mentorship program in place. You have an academy league, but you need to watch them from 16 to 20 and a half. They're already in trouble coming out of the Army. There are ways and programs to do that. But just to say we don't hire minorities is completely false. What you can control in the hiring are the people who are already in the city and looking to be promoted. You can open up recruitments, go national. Why is it that everybody else has to leave? You lost Garcia to Redlands to become a chief of police. You lost Walker to San Diego County to be a chief of police. It's the lack of transparency. The lack of a plan. When a council comes in, you don't turn over an entire city like you're rebuilding it. What's happening in the last 8 months is our police department is being used as a political pawn to boost yourselves up, and the public safety of every resident is up for bargaining and bidding to see who's going to be elected. And it's wrong. Keep us safe. Keep the police department from being outsourced. That's the only job you have to do right now.
Thank you, Treasurer. Jose Gonzalez, followed by Luis Ojeda.
Oh, hi, good evening, City Council and neighbors. Well, Jose Gonzalez from Inland Empire Soccer Association here in San Bernardino. I'm here to talk about the present. I mean, just the present, not the past. But honestly, I see too many changes in the few months of this administration, and I want to congratulate Mayor Valdivia. City Council got elected, and we should talk, instead of talk too much about diversity, negative things, we should just act and bring some solutions, some positive things. I mean, everything good, but to be honest, on my point as a sports and community leader is I want to serve as an example of our community, of our actions by not putting anybody down or put negative things that we see, because we got to see negative things every day. But instead of bringing them over here to the city council, why don't we see a pothole, let's do our stuff if we can with our money or whatever, some help, because we all got helps. We got help out there. Diversity, honestly, we got what we have. And we have what people who I'm here for. Whoever wants to help, anybody can be here to help. Any people, any color, any race, any religion. So, I mean, it's not good thing to bring us up, not important thing, to me, in personal thing. Let's work. Let's work with this administration. Let's work with this city council. Let's work with the people, with our neighbors. And let's bring the city of San Bernardino back up again. If I say back up again, because it was down, but once again, I don't want to bring nothing from the past. I want to talk about present. And I'm here. I'm here as a citizen, as a neighbor, and as a community leader, sports leader, to work with the city of San Bernardino. Jose Gonzalez, once again, I'm here. Any help from, I'll be more than happy to help the city and the government, administration. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Luis Ojeda.
Hello, good evening. Before I start, Mayor Pro Tem, I would like you to instruct the media people to please show the image of the public speakers. I mean, are we not good enough for you guys to show the people that is making public comments? I thought before it was a technical error, but every time I speak here, I immediately start watching the meeting on my phone, and I noticed this. So before I say something, I went over there and say, what is the reason that you're not showing the public comments for the public? I said, because I was instructed by the council. I would like to know who instructed them not to show the public speakers. Are we not good enough for you guys or what? I mean, am I on right now or not? I would like to know that before I proceed. So if you can please stop the clock.
Mr. Ojeda, we'll address your question later, after you've done speaking, but your time is expiring, so please continue to talk. We'll address it afterwards.
Okay. Well, we need to have moral authority for you guys to do what you guys instruct those people to do, okay? And I think that this council is lacking that, moral authority. We choose new elected officials, and just to bring a subject, the only one that has been accurate and be consistent with one thing, animal shelter. Juan, you run saying that you were going to support the animal shelter. You haven't done it. Teddy, same with you. Sandra, I want to congratulate you because you've been the only one that has the guts to stay the course. So the rest of you guys, you're playing politics, okay? And elections are coming up, and now everybody's going to start to play nice, and guess what's going to happen? Nothing. Nothing is going to happen. Why? Because you guys lack the will. You guys keep playing politics, and you guys keep playing to the special interests, okay? If you think that nobody's watching, guess what? We are, okay? We're paying attention. And we have everything in this city. What we lack is honesty, okay? We have a lot of dishonest people that have double dialogue, okay? And if you want change, the only way to change is to be honest with yourself. For the ones that have been here for years, you're not cutting it because we're still in a bad situation. For the new ones, shape yourself up. You know what you signed for. If you're not able to cut it, do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our public comments. We're going to move on to our staff reports. And we're going to start with the Census 2020 update.
Mayor Aaron Zavella from the City Manager's Office is here to present this report.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members, staff, and the public. Today before you, I have an update on Census 2020. The recommendation that staff has is to receive and file a report regarding actions being taken by the City of San Bernardino in support of the 2020 census and adopt resolution number 2019-284 of the Mayor and City Council inviting nominations to the Inland Empire Complete Count Committee. On April 3rd, 2019, the Mayor and City Council adopted resolution number 2019-51 affirming support for the 2020 census, supporting potential partnerships, aiding in an accurate count in the City of San Bernardino. During the discussion, the Mayor and City Council asked staff to identify and report back with how the city can support and encourage participation in the 2020 census. As directed, staff has evaluated the city's available resources and regional partnership opportunities to develop a plan to promote participation in the 2020 census. As part of this review, staff has identified and put into place a promotional plan that can be incorporated within the city's existing infrastructure. This includes compiling material to begin promoting the 2020 census this fall, posting communication materials and updates on the city's website, social media accounts, and public access channel. Additionally, the city will provide informational flyers at public locations, included but not limited to community centers, libraries, and public service counters. Information regarding the 2020 census will also be included on the February and March water bills. In addition to the efforts identified above, the city can engage residents by either establishing a City of San Bernardino Complete Count Committee or nominating residents to serve on the subcommittees established for the Inland Empire Complete Count Committee. Complete Count Committees, as defined by the U.S. Census Bureau, are committees comprised of government and community leaders tasked with developing and implementing a census awareness campaign. If the mayor and city council direct staff to prepare a resolution to establish a city complete count committee, residents will need to be appointed and the city will need to provide meeting space and dedicate staff from the offices of the mayor and city council to facilitate the committee's campaign efforts, including but not limited to the preparation and posting of agendas and minutes. The Inland Empire Complete Count Committee was created to develop a census awareness campaign specific to the Inland Empire, drawing representatives from nonprofit, government, education, business, and philanthropic sectors, with the goals to promote public awareness and participation in the 2020 U.S. Census. Currently, they're being led by a steering committee consisting of Supervisor Perez for Riverside County and Supervisor Rutherford from San Bernardino County as the co-chairs. Upon receiving nominees, the nomination subcommittee recommends appointments based upon a combination of need and relevant experience. Currently, a member of City Manager's Office staff is serving on the Interagency Coordination Subcommittee, aiding the city in staying up to date with regional census outreach and participation efforts. In an effort to maximize the city's limited resources, including the use of personnel, staff recommends building upon existing programs and committees to increase awareness and participation in the 2020 census in place of establishing a separate complete count committee. Riverside County and San Bernardino County have been awarded $1.48 million and $1.21 million, respectively, in state contracts to engage in the 2020 census outreach. It is important to note that at present, only 3 of the 24 incorporated cities in San Bernardino County have created an independent complete count committee, and funding for outreach efforts dedicated to the city of San Bernardino's residents will not require the establishment of a separate complete count committee. That concludes the staff report, and I can answer any questions.
Thank you. I do have one question, just that last sentence that you read. It talks about the residents will not require the establishment of a separate CCC. So does that mean that we have to attach ourselves with Riverside?
We do not.
Okay. So we have other options other than going through Riverside and
So the two options given, or we can either establish our own, or the Inland Empire, as Riverside and San Bernardino County, has already established a committee for public awareness, and we can participate in sending nominations there. But mentioning earlier, we are not required by San Bernardino County to access state funding to create a complete count committee. It's not a requirement.
Any other questions? Councilmember Abar?
Thank you for your report. I just want to make sure that we update on our staff report. We did get the email from Ms. Lupe Camacho. I'm not sure if she's here. But I also was under the understanding that a representative doesn't have to be an elected official from the city. So I don't know if we can get that clarified before we go ahead and approve. And also, with the no fiscal impact, I did clarify with Ms. Camacho that is no impact because it's not affecting our general fund. There is funding that they're getting already, that our city is getting already to conduct the census 2020. But when I had a presentation at a neighborhood association meeting, it was clear that elected officials would not be considered to be out in the community getting people to register, get people counted for the census 2020. And I just want to clarify that on the staff report.
So it's not a requirement for government officials to be a part of it. However, in the definition given by the U.S. Census Bureau, they do say a complete count committee is comprised of a broad spectrum of government and community leaders. So they can have elected officials, but they don't have to. In regards to funding, I did talk to San Bernardino County Administrator's Office at about 4 today, and they assured me that funding was not tied at all to starting our own complete count committee.
Okay, can we further clarify though? Because I was under the impression that I, for example, would not be able to be out there helping with the efforts as an elected official. I could not be a representative. That's the impression I got when I had Adan. I'm not sure. I don't see him today, but I know he mentioned this, and I spoke to him one-on-one.
Thank you. Councilmember Charette.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a question. This is a receive and file the report, but in there it sounds like there's a lot of options and things that we should be doing. Are there any recommendations from staff as to what we should be doing?
Yes, staff is recommending that we join the Inland Empire Complete Count Committee. We feel like that will serve the city the best.
But you're not asking for us to ratify that or approve that, right?
You're adopting the attached resolution.
Okay, so it's not just a receive and file. We are voting on something.
Yes, that is correct.
But it's not. That's not what this says.
So the recommendation is to receive and file and to adopt resolution number 2019.
I'd like to move that we join the Inland Empire.
Well, yeah, I'll second it.
On item 3, the motion to approve was made by Mr. Mulvihill, the second by Mr. Charette. Mr. Sanchez?
Yes.
Ms. Ibarra?
I'll abstain.
Mr. Figueroa?
Yes.
Mr. Charette? Ms. Richard?
Yes.
And Mr. Mulvihill?
Yes.
The item passes with 5 yes votes and 1 abstention.
And on an abstention, don't you have to give a reason?
No.
No? Okay. So we'll move on to item number 4, to authorize staff to issue a RFP for before and after school services at the 9th Street Community Center.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Jim Tickmeyer, Parks and Recreation Director, will give this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Tickmeyer.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. What we have before you is a staff report requesting for authorization to issue an RFP to go out to provide services to operate and manage our 1180 West 9th Street facility, which is, was the Boys and Girls Club of San Bernardino, is now operating under another name, same organization, just has undergone a name change. We brought this to you guys shortly after the charter was revoked from the Boys and Girls Club of America. Direction from council at the time was to first and foremost engage the Boys and Girls Club of America with a request that a charter be reissued or a new charter be issued to an organization in San Bernardino. It was made clear and in short order by the Boys and Girls Club of America that the national organization is not issuing any new charters at this time or would not be reissuing existing charters, and that Boys and Girls Club services, in order for them to be provided in the city of San Bernardino, the only eligible organization to do that is the currently chartered organization of Greater Redlands Riverside. So it's Greater Redlands Riverside Boys and Girls Club. So that being said, what staff is recommending is that we develop and issue an RFP to go out for to be advertised and issued to the public so that we can get responses from other local nonprofits. The organization that currently resides in the building would be eligible to respond to that RFP, obviously, and we would get a more broad view of what's available, what type of services and what type of organizations are available to provide those services consistent with the Boys and Girls Club services that are being provided there now.
Does that conclude your
So
report?
I'm open to any questions, which I'm sure we will have.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Councilmember Charette.
Yeah, I clarify on I believe it's important to have the name Boys and Girls Club. I think that national identification is important to us, and it has been. Who's running it right now? And it's not running as a Boys and Girls Club. We've changed that. Is the operator that was in there that we were?
It's the same organization. It's the organization that was formerly the Boys and Girls Club of San Bernardino.
But the Boys and Girls Club of the National took away
Yes,
the ability
revoked
for
their
them
charter.
to
So
operate,
they're-
which really is a great concern of mine. And I think at that point in time, we should have just absolutely said, no way, we want you out, and we want to talk to National or to Redlands, Riverside Group to get the Boys and Girls Club back in here. Is that not in the cards for this facility? I mean, we've squandered the Boys and Girls Club of America. I don't.
When you say squandered, you mean the charter? We basically we're not in a position to have a local organization
Right.
be chartered.
Because
and-
we've had someone in there that wasn't acceptable to them, and we didn't respond. And from what I can tell, didn't respond quickly enough and say, well, what can we do to make sure that we maintain the Boys and Girls Club, the national brand, and what can we do to keep that? Because I think that's critical.
And in fairness, council member, to the current occupant, this is something that has been ongoing. You know, when you go back historically and look, there's been issues with the Boys and Girls Club of San Bernardino that have come about and then been taken care of, and the charter has been retained. It just got to a point with the Boys and Girls Club where they were no longer willing to
Work with us. Because we,
and it's
because
also a
we
national,
collectively, not you, not any staff, but because we as a city did a poor job of managing that and overseeing that somehow. I mean, they didn't just come in here and pull our charter for no reason.
No, and let's be clear though, a city is not chartered. An
No, it's the
organization is
contractor
chartered.
that had the charter that lost it.
Correct.
I get that. But we, I think, should have been kind of on top of that, saying, look, if you can't keep it, then we don't want you in here. I know this is a sticky issue, and there's a lot of, but I for one believe that if there's a way we can keep the name Boys and Girls Club of America, I think we should. I'll approve. I'll make the motion that we go out to RFP, but I would like to, at the same time, be trying to see what we can do to, hopefully that group, you called it the Redlands, Riverside, Greater.
It's a Greater
Inland,
Redlands, Riverside.
Greater Inland
Boys and Girls
Empire
Club.
or whatever. In your opinion, would that not be a good thing to be partnered with them or have them run our facility?
I have had communication with them prior to making the decision to go out to RFP. Through Boys and Girls Club of America, there was discussion with Greater Redlands Riverside. And if you're asking my opinion as to their sustainability and the quality of the program and the organization, I think they do a fine job with the areas that they do. They're a large club. They have a lot of resources for fundraising, and I think they would do a fine job as a Boys and Girls Club if that's the.
Well, I
the
hope
desire.
they'll turn in turn in a.
So Fred, I'd like to second that if you're amenable to also adding the condition that all applicants be presented before this council with a ranking as well as a small description of the type of activities that they would be facilitating in that facility, so we don't have a narrowed down list, but we have all applicants come before the council so that we can make a final decision. Would you be fine with that amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll
Thank you.
second.
Thank you. Call for the vote.
Okay. You could all push your buttons if you'd like, or we can do a voice vote.
We could push the buttons?
You may push your buttons.
Thank you, Gigi.
Okay, on item 4, the motion was made by Mr. Charette. It was seconded by Mr. Sanchez, and the item passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we'll move on to our public hearings. Resolution of the mayor and the city council of the city of San Bernardino pursuant to section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986, approving the issuance of bonds by the Housing Authority of the County of San Bernardino for the Arrowhead Grove Phase 2. It says Phase 2. I am opening up the public hearing at 8:09 p.m. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Huntley.
Honorable Vice Chair and members of the City Council, as the Vice Chair had mentioned, the item in front of the City Council tonight is actually, we are requesting the City Council adopt a resolution that's pursuant to the Internal Revenue Service in association with approving it and actually thereby allowing the issuance of bonds, so to say, right? So with that, the City Council back in 2018, approximately the same date as today, actually was approved in or on September 5th of 2018. The Mayor and the City Council actually did approve a resolution, thereby authorizing the ability to float bonds for the Arrowhead Grove Phase 2 project. Pursuant to the Tax Entity, or I'm sorry, the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, the regulations only allow for a one-year period. That's for when the City Council takes action to the issuance of those bonds. However, due to some delays associated with the project, they're not able to issue those bonds, and actually the one-year period actually expires tomorrow. So really what's in front of the City Council tonight is actually to, for the most part, reapprove the same thing you approved last year about the same time, and that would be to authorize through a resolution the issuance of tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds actually for the Arrowhead Grove Phase 2 project. I do want to point out that the housing authority for the city or for the county of San Bernardino is the one who would be actually issuing those bonds. And actually, in this particular case, they are requesting the City Council to approve this project through this resolution. Based on the Internal Revenue Services laws, you are required to make this or actually approve the resolution, thereby they can move forward with the issuance of these bonds. I do want to point out to the public that and to the council that there is no liability associated with this action taken by the City Council. All of that falls under the Housing Authority for the County of San Bernardino. That concludes staff's presentation, and we can continue with the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Huntley. One thing I want to ask, is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak on this public hearing item? Thank you. Councilmember Movio.
I was just going to move that we approve the resolution.
Call for the vote.
Please push your buttons.
Let me stop saying that. Press the buttons.
On item 5, the motion to approve was made by Mr. Mulvihill, seconded by Mr. Charette, and the item passes 6-0.
Thank you. This concludes our public hearing we have another one? And it's not on here. Hold on just a second. So we'll take the staff report on the next public hearing item.
The Honorable Vice Chair and members of the City Council, the next item on the agenda is actually a public hearing. This is associated with a code amendment. What this really focuses on tonight is issues associated with our appeals process. If you look within your packet, it actually does identify a number of things, and really the main focus at the end of the day is to focus on two options. But really what we want to do is kind of introduce what this is, and this is a code amendment associated with San Bernardino Municipal Code that deals with the appeal process. Over the last probably 4 to 6 months, the City Attorney's Office, as well as a number of different departments to include code enforcement within the police department, the building official out of my department, the assistant city manager also, all have been working with the city attorney's office to clean this section up. If you look in the back part of your packet, there's a very extensive section which shows a lot of red lines, and actually the city attorney and staff have been working really closely to clean this up because there was a lot of inconsistencies within the appeal process itself. Really, at the end of the day, what we want to do is clean it up and take and modernize it so we can actually apply this across the board. We did have some issues where we were concerned that people would file appeals. We really had nothing in place that was valid to move some of those forward. So with that, there's two separate items is being presented to City Council tonight associated with this. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty in regards to all the red lines within the ordinance, but I really want to focus on the appeal process and more specifically how this applies to the Building Appeals Board itself. So with that, the resolution that you'll be reviewing tonight is associated with the building appeals process. For that reason, staff has prepared two separate options for consideration by City Council. We did have some dialogue with some of the other council members associated with this process. We're really trying to tailor make it, and actually when we do talk about the Building Appeals Board, typically that is a board of experts, people who understand the building codes, so to say, and what they typically would be doing is they would be appealing decisions made by the building official or issues associated with our building code standards. So with that, over the last 4 or 5 months, and if you look at what's within the staff report, there's actually many chapters of our municipal code which we are amending to bring it all together and clarify and clean up some things. And most of the cleanup items were associated with the Building Appeals Board as well as with our hearing officer also trying to clarify and clean those processes up. So as we worked through this, the main focus was on the Building Appeals Board process, and what we did is we looked at two separate options, what might be palatable to the City Council. The first option, and I'll take my time going through this because it gets a little bit complicated as I go through these. So in regards to option number one, we have what's called, or what is referred to as Chapter 2.45. And this is to optimize the board membership qualifications and hearing procedures in the following manner. First, this particular option is proposing to alter the board membership requirements in a way that ensures compliance with the law and making staffing of the board and reaching a quorum a lot easier. This proposal does by eliminating what's called the accessibility aspect of this option, and this goes back to the state codes, and it's really not necessary for this particular board, so we're proposing to take that component out. Because we're looking for technical experts in the field, we had been proposing to eliminate the residency requirement. As you're aware, for all boards and commissions in the city, we do require they be a resident of this community. In some cities, when we don't quite have the technical expertise out there, we may suggest to councils to maybe allow for some of that to occur outside, meaning that based on the technical experts we need to be able to sit on this board, we may have to go outside the city. This could be building officials in other cities. It could be building experts, contractors who have that kind of skill. So in this option, we've suggested that to come out. And then the third option is proposing that the board members be knowledgeable and experienced in the building and construction codes. Now that's really not something we're mandating. That's actually mandated by the state law. Okay. So those are some of the things associated with option one. And I do want to also point out the last component of option one is this actually does provide additional hearing and appeals procedures. So those people who are appealing the an item have a clear understanding in regards to what they're doing. In regards to option two, and this is kind of a hybrid, this comes out of our discussions with some of the council members and the legislative committee. And one of the suggestions that came out of that would be, instead of maybe reaching out to people outside our community, would be to look at the Planning Commission as an option for the appeal board, right? The Planning Commission and the Appeals Board both have similar quasi-judiciary kinds of responsibilities, and as such, that was thrown out, and maybe we should just use the Planning Commission to do that. So option two would therefore allow the Planning Commission or commissioners to actually sit on the appeal board. Some of the options to this also, it'll make it easier for there to be a quorum. As you're aware, we have 8 planning commissioners. Really, at the end of the day, it'd be easier for them to do the same job. So the option is to actually continue to use the planning commission as the appeals board. Then the other aspect of it is we also have to require that they have the expertise and knowledge. So if council goes along with option number 2, I want to point out that we are going to have to provide some additional training to the Planning Commission and get them up to speed on some of the building and construction codes. So really, at the end of the day, it's actually utilizing and expanding their skill base. Moving on. One of the things that deviates from this option also is that in regards to option number 1, the option basically indicates that if someone appeals a portion of the code to the appeals board, it stops with them. It doesn't go any farther. With option number 2, what we're looking at is an item can be appealed to the appeals board, but then can also be appealed to council. So if the person who's appealing it wasn't satisfied with the appeal board's decision, then in that case it goes up to the council, which kind of provides an additional layer at the end of the day. It gives someone another chance, so to say. And I think for the most part that covers all of the deviations between the two. So kind of in a nutshell, option number 1 basically would create an appeals board. You give you the flexibility of being able to get people from outside the community if you so wish. It'll provide more flexibility. And really, it's a little more limited than option number 2. Option number 2 would allow you to use the Planning Commission. These are people who live within the city, are appointed within the city. And then it does provide a little more flexibility with the appeals process. It just doesn't stop with the Board of Appeals, but it'll also go to the City Council. So those are really the two differences between the two. And really what we're looking for tonight is council to move forward with either option 1 or option 2. That concludes my presentation. I also have Brandon Sanchez here from the City Attorney's Office. He worked really diligently with our city staff, working through and crafting this, and actually working on crafting the second option as well. So that concludes our presentation. Brandon's also here to answer questions.
Okay, thank you. So that's option 1 or option 2. So any comments?
I'd like to move to approve option 2.
I'll second that too. But with comments, Councilmember Charette.
Yeah, as an expert, and I'm looking at you, do you have a preference to the option? I think I'm leaning towards option number 1. Is option 2 really number 1, but it's really not. They're very different. Well, option 1 gives us more flexibility in who we put on it, and it requires, state law, I guess, requires that, isn't that what you said? State law requires
Correct.
that they have some qualifications. But planning commissioners don't necessarily have to have qualification to be on a planning commission. I hope they do, and many of them do, but they don't have to.
Correct. So the difference, though, is if we include the Planning Commission as the appeals board, we are going to require them to have to go through training. That's one of the things we're going to have to do. You know, they aren't going to be, quote unquote, the expert, so to say, but part of what we need to do is help educate them, and that's kind of the sidebar to this, is that, you know, based on this option, we think this is more viable. And I understand the option.
So your recommendation is you think number 2 is a better way to go?
Yeah, and I also like the aspect is it can always be appealed to council too. It just doesn't stop. It gives people a little more due process, so to say, you know, really at the end of the day. So, you know, I guess my comment, if you're asking my opinion is that as long as we include that component, which we have to,
the training,
that we provide the additional training, and it's just not a one-time training, that we help them understand what they're looking at, and we provide the training that they need to be able to make the appropriate decision.
And one thing I would add is that, and I don't think it was said, is that there are going to be very few building appeals that are going to be made. There may be just a handful or fewer every year.
Okay. So the training is the key component there, and then giving us a little more flexibility and having our own, kind of our own people.
Correct. And I guess then the other aspect is in the future, as the city council is appointing new commissioners, always keep that in mind, that in addition to having some planning or land use or real estate background, that hopefully they'll have some building experience as well.
Okay, well, it's been moved and seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Huntley.
Thank you.
Councilmember Mulvihill.
Yeah, I would like to argue against option number 2. You know, this the whole idea of building reviews involve and looking at engineers or contractors. We're talking about Title 24.
Correct.
I don't think a planning commissioner is going to sit down and attend all the meetings. In fact, it's difficult often to get quorums in planning commission meetings. Often planning commission members are appointed because they made phone calls for a candidate during his campaign. I was on the planning commission for 7 years, so, you know, in my background, I had background for planning. But the point is, you know, people were appointed to the planning commission that really didn't know what a general plan was, didn't know what zoning was. And obviously, hopefully, they'd never be on this building panel. But the point is, assuming that a citizen would want to spend the hours in training, I think is beyond the pale. You really want to have somebody who is a contractor or an engineer. We've got a lot of them around here. They're, you know, you can go down, you know, Arrowhead. There's several right, one after another, and so I would simply argue against option 2. I think that it would really be open ourselves up to some very arbitrary by people who are minimally trained, if at all, who you're asking them to attend yet more meetings without pay, without much recognition. And again, planning commission, typically, you know, 1 or 2 people are absent all the time. Not necessarily the same people, but the point is the attendance is not that, it's not 100%. And so I would say that option 2 is definitely leaves herself open to some arbitrary decision making. And again, I think we need to have a little bit more expertise at this level, and seriously reconsider the motion of passing on option 2. I think it's you know, from my background, you know, my planning commissioner, I had appointed to the Building Appeals Board before, and his background is as a contractor, and he was a perfect fit. And he could, you know, we talked about his decisions that he'd made, and he can come down and talk about, you know, the kind of internal structure of a building and how that plays out in terms of, you know, impact on soils and et cetera, et cetera. He could probably talk to you about the problems that are wrong with our city hall, which would be up for a real building appeal.
So Councilmember Mulvihill,
I'm
option
saying
number 1.
Option number 1. And so it's the proposal is that to go with option 2. I'm arguing against option 2, and I'll be voting against this motion.
Thank you. Councilmember Ibarra.
I will be supporting option number 2, and here's my reasoning. Right now, we have the professionals, I'll be quoting it, professionals in our planning department already. I think it's fair that we allow our commissioners to be an appeals board in case there's something that's going to go up in their neighborhood that might affect their livelihood. So I do want option number 2, but I have a question on page 102, 2.45.020. The terms of office is crossed off and it says reserved. Does that mean that we're not going to have any terms for them, or they're just going to follow what the planning commission is?
One moment, but I think the page sorry, what page was it?
Page 102.
I think the section you're referring to is when there was formerly, under the current code, a separate board comprised of
109 on the new packet, sorry.
Comprised of separate board members. They had a term limit, but since this board will now be comprised of planning commissioners, the planning commissioners will serve their normal term. And so there doesn't need to be a separate term limit in Chapter 2.45.
Okay, and then can we also add in there that one of the requirements for future planning commissioners be that they have to attend trainings for state, and if they accept, then they'll join that planning commission, otherwise they shouldn't sign up for the planning commission. That should be one of the requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ibarra. Any more comments? Okay, let's get voting going.
Okay, the motion was made by Mr. Sanchez, seconded by Ms. Richard, to adopt option 2. Please push your buttons. Okay. And the item passes 6-0. I was a little curious to a no. I'm sorry. The item passes 5-1 with Mr. Mulvihill voting no.
Okay, thank you, Gigi. Okay, guys, can I close this public hearing now? All right. Okay, now I will be closing the public hearing. It is 8:30 p.m. And now we're going to move on to the consent calendar. For items to be pulled from the consent calendar, Councilmember Sanchez.
No items to pull.
Councilmember Ibarra.
I have several. 11, 15, 16, and 18.
11, 15, 16, and 18? Is that correct?
Correct.
Councilmember Figueroa.
None.
Councilmember Charette. And I have none. Councilmember Mulvihill.
None.
Thank you. So we'll move on to
Move
the
the,
first.
move the, move the
Yes.
remainders.
And can I get a voice vote? For some reason, my computer's not.
Yes.
Mr. Sanchez, Ms. Ibarra,
Yes.
Mr. Figueroa.
Yes.
Mr. Charette. Ms. Richard.
Yes.
Mr. Mulvihill.
Yes.
The consent calendar passes unanimously.
Okay. Item number 11, professional services agreement with Advanced Pet Care and authorized to issue a purchase order. Councilmember Ibarra.
Okay, question for McBride, right? Chief McBride. On this one, my only question for you is, do we open up RFPs for pet care, or is it only Advanced Pet Care that we always renew with?
I believe it was
And the reasoning for it?
sole source. It was the only one that could provide an immediate area, the veterinary services that we need.
That was my only question.
Okay.
Move.
Second.
On item 11, the motion to approve was made by Mr. Charette, the second by Mr. Mulvihill, and the item passes 6-0.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 15. Item number 15 is a resolution declaring intent to annex territory. Community Facilities Districts. Councilmember Ibarra.
I pulled item 15 because the council member whose area this affects is not here today. Hopefully we can we push it to the next council meeting?
Move to continue to the next council meeting.
And why are we doing this? Why are we moving it?
Because the council member whose area is affected, he's not here
The
today.
council member. City manager, did the council member from this ward, did he express any
No.
concerns?
No.
Second.
Go ahead and push your buttons. On item 15, the motion was made by Mr. Charette, seconded by Mr. Mulvihill to approve, and the item passes 5-1 with Ms. Ibarra voting no.
Okay, moving on, item number 16, Phase 3 landfill gas collection and treatment system upgrades in inactive Waterman landfill. Councilmember Ibarra.
Okay, I have several questions on this one. My first one is on the packet, on page 542. It says that the city was notified in 2004 by state regulatory agencies that the Waterman landfill was not in compliance. Do we have any proof of that letter from the state? I didn't get it in the packet.
Yes, we do.
Okay, because that was missing. The other item is just to confirm, we have had BAS, aka Tetra Tech, working on that landfill since 2004, correct?
That is correct. They are the consultant that do monitoring for our landfill.
Okay, and one of their duties, from what I'm understanding here, is they were supposed to maintain the property, do routine operations, maintenance, monitoring of the landfill gas extraction and treatment system. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and maybe, I don't know, Helen, I don't know if she can answer this question or not, but I saw on page, hold on, let me get it right now, a former employee listed as a board member for BAS, aka Tetra Tech, who's currently now employed with Vertec, Chris Alanese. Was he employed with the city when this first passed through?
We'll have to check on that. Yeah, we could have answered that if you would have asked me in advance. I wasn't prepared to answer that.
Okay, so can I make a motion that we postpone this one also for the next council meeting?
I don't want Chris Alanese to have anything to do with anything. Say that publicly.
I also have just one small question.
Sure.
I know that you guys are the experts at this, but the question is, has anybody talked to the county to get their advice? Is this something that we absolutely have to do?
Yes.
Because this is a big chunk of money that maybe we can spend someplace else, and that's my only concern. Is maybe this is something we can postpone, put off if we talk to maybe some of the county partners that are the expertise also in this landfill.
The notice of violation that we received is from the County of San Bernardino Environmental Health and from Cal Recycle.
Oh, well, tell them
They
to take
both,
it back.
I'm sorry, they both
Take it
did
back.
issue the notice of violation.
Okay. all
Mayor
right.
Pro Tem,
So-
why don't we just continue it to the next meeting so I can address your questions?
Okay, so let's continue this item to our next council meeting, or I think we're going to be piled up next council meeting. Okay. So we're going to move on. So we move to continue.
Second.
Oh,
Please push your buttons. And this is to continue the item. The motion was made by Mr. Charette, seconded by Mr. Mulvihill to continue item 16 to the next council meeting, and it passes 6-0.
Okay, we're going to move on to item number 18, which is the health benefits plan for year 2020 amendment. Councilmember Ibarra.
Okay, on this one, it says fiscal impact, sufficient funding was included. What part of the budget was this discrepancy included on?
This is under the health benefits for employees in middle management, and there's no impact because this is already factored in the budget that was adopted. This is just an error that needs to be fixed on the resolution.
Okay, and this error was caught before the budget was adopted or after?
This was, the budget already factored in the increases for the contribution, so there's no impact, additional impact.
I just want to make sure, so health and benefits. I know I had asked in one of the meetings that we include what budgets these are coming from, and that wasn't.
There's no budget impact to this item. It was just an error in the resolution that we're correcting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Before I move to approve this, I just wanted to know what that error was.
The contribution amount for middle management did not show reflected for plan year 2020. It showed plan year 2019, so we need to show, it needs to be consistent with the MOU.
Okay. Move to approve.
Okay. Let's take a vote.
Mr. Sanchez?
Yes.
Ms. Ibarra?
Yes.
Mr. Figueroa?
Yes.
Mr. Charette? Ms. Richard?
Yes.
And Mr. Mulvihill?
Yes.
The item passes 6-0.
Okay, that concludes all our items on the consent calendar. Are there any items to be referred to committees? Council members, anybody? Councilmember Ibarra.
Hi, yes, I'd like to call for the Animal Shelter Ad Hoc Committee. Councilmember Mulvihill resigned on July 30th, 31st, and he sent an email to all of us to courtesy, and we haven't met. I think it would be a nice opportunity to meet with Lieutenant McComber and Affronti, and Captain Green to discuss what's going on currently with the animal shelter.
That's a mayor ad hoc committee, so you can call it at your will.
I just wanted to voice it publicly
mayor-
because we don't have a chairperson currently, and our mayor hasn't
The mayor
reappointed.
can appoint, okay.
Okay, thank you. Is there any others? Well, looks like we're done. So I adjourn this meeting. We'll see you all at the next meeting in September the 7th, the 18th. Everybody have a good evening.